Elias Thorne is on his usual Tuesday morning shift, the smell of old paper and dust filling the air. He pulled out the rusted key for box 19, feeling the familiar slight resistance of the lock. Instead of the usual junk mail or a few forgotten bills, the box is full. Not overflowing, but neatly packed with a stack of identical cream-colored envelopes, each sealed with a distinctive, almost ornate wax seal. He pulls one out. It's addressed in elegant, fancy writing, to a Ms. Eleanor Vance, Darlinghurst. No return address. He pulled out another. Mrs. Beatrice Croft, Bondi Beach. Then Dr. Imogen Lee, North Sydney. And so on. All women. All different names, different Sydney suburbs. Chill ran down his spine. It's not just the sheer number of them, but the absence of any other mail, and the uniformity. Elias decided to approach his boss, concerning the letters.
Mr. Walker, I had to bring to your attention the oddity with box 19. It is unclaimed, but filled with uniform letters which have no return addresses.
Mr. Walker barely glanced at them. He dismissed it as a crank, a weirdo sending fan mail, or a misfiled commercial promotion. He told Elias to process them for return to sender.
Mr. Walker, I said there's no return
ruin my
address
morning. Trash them if there's no return addresses and get back to real work.
That is Mr. Walker for you. Always uninterested in anything that isn't standard procedure. Frustrated and feeling dismissed, Elias decided to just mail the first letter, addressed to Ms. Eleanor Vance. For a moment it felt thrilling stepping out of routine. But deep down, it was his small act of rebellion against a boss who didn't care. That evening, in his residence, the local news played softly. Elias rarely paid much attention, preferring the quiet hum of his own thoughts. But a familiar name cut through the newscaster's dull voice, Eleanor Vance. His hand, holding a half-eaten sandwich, froze. The report was stark.
Local woman Eleanor Vance was found dead in her Darlinghurst residence. Preliminary reports suggest an apparent suicide.
Elias stared at the screen, a cold knot forming in his stomach. The next morning, the knot had tightened. Elias arrived at work earlier than usual, the image of Eleanor Vance's face from the news still fresh in his mind. He couldn't shake the feeling. His colleagues, absorbed in their own routines, wouldn't understand. They'd dismiss it as an overactive imagination, a coincidence. Adding to the fact that he didn't follow procedure, how did he explain? You mailed a letter, and the recipient turned dead. He shakes it off, peace to the dead, he said. He pulled out the box 19 file, the stack of envelopes now presaging ill fortune. He looked at the next name, Mrs. Beatrice Croft, Bondi Beach. He mails the second letter. He found himself glancing nervously at the morning papers during his tea break. Nothing about Beatrice Croft. The news of Beatrice Croft hit 2 days later. Not a suicide this time, but a confirmed murder in her Bondi home. The details were scarce, but Elias didn't need many. The second name on the stack. The second death. He was on his lunch break when he saw the headline. Just like that, his face went pale. He dashed like a flash to box 19 this time to see the content of the letters. He pulled out a letter, eyes scanning the name on the envelope. Dr. Imogen Lee. Carefully he broke the wax seal. Inside, there's a single sheet of paper, neatly folded. No signature, just a short, unsettling phrase. The tide pulls away, never empty-handed. It takes what it is given, and leaves behind stone. What does it mean? Elias, a man who saw patterns in the mundane, sensed something far more sinister at play. And the other letters, how many were there? He hadn't counted. 10, 20. Each one a potential ticking clock. A cold fear gripped him, but it wasn't just fear anymore. It was something heavier. A rising sense of responsibility. He couldn't just sit on this. He was unknowingly complicit by simply possessing these letters. But who would believe him? And what if the killer knew he had them? What if he was now on the killer's radar? He felt a desperate urge to warn her, to warn all of them. But how? He only had their names and their general suburb. He was a mailroom worker, not a detective. And what would he say? I opened a P.O. box and found a cryptic verse, and now you might die. Sounds insane. Despite his apprehension, Elias knew he couldn't ignore it. His meticulous nature, which usually brought him peace, now compelled him forward. He had to know if the rest of the women were safe. He had to know if this chilling pattern was real.
Breaking news from Permont tonight. Former TV host Claudia Wells was found dead in her home under suspicious circumstances. Emergency services responded to a triggered panic alarm but arrived to find the woman collapsed at the base of her spiral staircase, neck broken. Investigators believe she may have fallen, but inconsistencies at the scene have raised questions.
He remembered the letter he wanted to warn her about. He didn't mail it, but she died anyway. Her envelope read, "The clock forgets, but echoes remember. Beneath the bell, the silence stings." The cryptic verses weren't just poems. They were prophecies. And he was holding the killer's mailing list. He thought about the police. Detective Miles, who sometimes dropped off large packages. Would he take Elias seriously? Or would he see a lonely mailroom worker obsessed with a strange coincidence? The risk of being dismissed, or worse, becoming a suspect himself, was terrifying. But the alternative, more names from Box 19 turning up dead, was unthinkable. He knew with absolute certainty that he had to act. The only question was, how and to whom could he possibly reveal the secrets of Box 19 without putting himself in danger? The decision to go to the police gnawed at Elias, but fear held him back. The logical part of his brain screamed for him to present the evidence, but the human part, the part that had spent years unnoticed and unremarked upon, whispered about suspicion, ridicule, and potentially even placing himself in the crosshairs. He had to prove the connection, not just theorize about it. He spent his lunch break, and then his entire evening, poring over the remaining envelopes from Box 19. He counted them. 16 left. The next in the stack after Claudia Wells was Dr. Imogen Lee, North Sydney. North Sydney. It wasn't too far. An idea, reckless and terrifying, began to form. He would go to Dr. Imogen Lee to warn her. It was a crazy plan, he knew. He, a nondescript mailroom worker showing up on a stranger's doorstep, with a cryptic poem and a wild tale of a killer. But the thought of another headline, another woman dead, spurred him on. The next afternoon after his shift, Elias found himself on a train heading towards North Sydney, the sealed envelope for Dr. Imogen Lee tucked securely in his inside jacket pocket, a lump of anxiety in his throat. He had carefully looked up her address online, finding a sprawling, slightly intimidating Federation-era house, complete with a brass nameplate identifying it as Dr. I. Lee Psychiatric Practice. Psychiatrist. Great. She'd probably think he was crazy. He paced outside the wrought iron gate for 10 minutes, rehearsing his opening lines, each one sounding more ridiculous than the last. The sun was dipping now, casting long, unsettling shadows. He felt exposed here, out of place in this quiet, wealthy, tree-lined street. Finally, taking a deep breath, he pushed open the gate and walked up the path. The house gave off a quiet, almost severe kind of silence. He rang the doorbell. Silence. He rang again. After a moment, he heard footsteps approaching, hesitant at first, then firm. The door opened a crack, revealing intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Dr. Imogen Lee. Yes. Her voice was crisp, professional, betraying no warmth. Elias swallowed, his rehearsed speeches dissolving into a jumbled mess. Dr. Lee, my name is Elias Thorne. I work at the mail center. I have something important to tell you. It's about a letter. Dr. Lee's eyes narrowed, taking in his nervous demeanor. A letter. From the mail center. Mr. Thorne, if this is about a delivery issue, you should take it up through official channels. Her tone was dismissive, already closing the door. No, please wait. Elias blurted out, desperation overriding his timidity. It's not a delivery issue. It's a warning. This letter. It was found in an unclaimed P.O. box. And the women who received letters like this, they're dead. 3 of them already. You're next, Dr. Lee. I think you're next. Dr. Lee's eyes dropped to the letter, then flicked back to his face, her expression unreadable. For a long, terrifying moment, Elias thought she would slam the door in his face, perhaps even call the police. Instead, a flicker of something he couldn't quite decipher. Curiosity, alarm, crossed her features. She paused, considering him, her gaze surprisingly sharp. Come in, Mr. Thorne, she said, her voice softer now, though still guarded. But you have precisely 5 minutes to explain yourself. Elias, still trembling, launched into his story. He spoke of the unclaimed Box 19, the stack of identical envelopes with the ornate wax seals. He described Eleanor Vance's death. He recounted Beatrice Croft's letter, Claudia Wells, then their murder. He even pulled out the one addressed to her, Dr. Imogen Lee, the one that read, "The tide pulls away, never empty-handed. It takes what it's given and leaves behind stone." Dr. Lee listened, her expression unreadable. She occasionally tapped a pen against a notepad, but made no interruption, no judgment. When he finally finished, he expected skepticism, a polite dismissal, or perhaps a call to the authorities to have him removed. Instead, Dr. Lee leaned forward, a strange glint in her intelligent eyes.
"You believe these letters are forewarnings, Mr. Thorne, and you found them in this mysterious box 19, addressed to specific women. I'm inclined to believe that you're either delusional, or you've stumbled upon something profoundly disturbing."
A wave of relief washed over Elias. Someone believed him.
"So, you'll call the police? We can show them the letters?"
"Perhaps," she murmured, her eyes distant, as if running through a complex calculation. She then reached for a small, elegant ceramic mug on her desk. "Would you like some coffee, Mr. Elias Thorne? It's just brewed." She paused then, to Elias's surprise. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. Elias shook his head, too wired to even consider it. "No, thank you, Dr. Lee. I'm fine." "You sure? You look as though you've run a marathon." "A good, strong brew will do you good," she said, already pouring a steaming dark liquid from a matching pot into her own mug. "Give me a moment to think this through." She took a long, deliberate sip from her coffee, her eyes still on Elias, a flicker of something Elias couldn't quite place. Satisfaction. In their depths. Suddenly, her expression contorted. Her hand, still holding the mug, began to tremble violently. The professional composure shattered, replaced by a sudden, gasping struggle for air. Her eyes, wide with terror, fixed on Elias. She clawed at her throat, a guttural sound escaping her lips. The mug clattered to the desk, coffee sloshing over papers. Elias sprang forward, horrified. "Dr. Lee, are you all right?" She swayed, then slumped back into her chair, her face rapidly turning a mottled blue. A thin trickle of blood appeared at the corner of her mouth. Her eyes rolled back, and with a shuddering gasp that seemed to tear from her very core, Dr. Imogen Lee went utterly, chillingly still.